Well, members of the EFF are out in the streets as well today. The party, of course, leading this national shutdown. They are protesting, among others, against power cuts. Usually during protest actions of this nature, rogue elements tend to infiltrate the marches and cause mayhem, as we've seen in the past in the country. Now, given the looming national elections next year, what sort of risk does the country now face as we build up to those polls? Let's discuss all of this and the impact of today's actions with Dr. Kingsley Makhubela. He's a director at RiskRecon. It's a company, of course, that provides risk and security assessment services for its clients. Good afternoon, Doc. Thank you very much for coming through.
Good afternoon, Murat.
It's good to see you. Did you make it here easy? No blockages on your way?
No, actually the road was fantastic. Everything was moving smoothly.
Yeah. Looks like the presence of the police, the visibility we saw in Durban with our reporters there and in Pretoria as examples, following and monitoring these marches very closely is having the desired effect of ensuring there's no lawlessness.
Well, we also give credit to the marchers who are behaving as far as we're concerned. We are yet to look at the totality of the reports that are coming out as to how was the behavior of the marchers. But so far, we really have to give them credit for behaving very well.
Yeah. Is this the kind of action we should anticipate will continue as we head towards 2024? Because you can see the main demand from the EFF, for example, is that the president must resign. Okay, so they want a change of government, or they want a change of the leadership of government.
Opposition are by nature intended to ascend to power. All opposition parties, they contest the elections to be in power, to really remove the incumbent. That's the nature of the democratic dispensation.
Yeah. So in this particular case, I mean, what could be the likely impact? The world is watching us. There are protests elsewhere in the world. In fact, there are 4 other countries in Africa today where there's protests: Tunisia, Nigeria, Senegal, and Kenya. You know, they're also protesting for various reasons. Kenya as well, cost of living crisis. But I mean, there are protests everywhere. What could the risks be? I mean, what do you tell your clients when they look at what's happening today and say, what is the outlook risk-wise like between now and our general elections next year?
Right, then this is a thermometer to measure the temperature for the coming general election. It appears now that people are preparing already for contesting the election. So issues are going to be topped up. The risks are very high. But the only thing that I think we need to manage much better is to be able to have civil disobedience that are not disruptive, that are not violent, and that's what will send a confident message to the international community.
Whose responsibility is it? Is it the organizer as well to make sure that the behavior of the protesters is according to the law?
It's actually a responsibility of the protesters and also the responsibility of the law enforcement. Remember, they must enforce the law. They must sit down and prepare very well with the demonstrators to ensure that nothing happens, and actually develop communication mechanism that throughout the demonstration, they're able to manage any potential crisis they may arise.
Yeah, I wonder, what do you think, Kingsley? I've seen a view that says government went, even deploying the army. It's like you're giving too much credit to this protest that is being led by the EFF. Do you think it was important for the state to act in the way it has acted to ensure that there is respect for the law, to enforce the law?
I think there was an exaggeration by the government. Really, the deployment of the army sends a very wrong message. It actually sends a negative message around the world that we are unable to manage, the police are unable to manage the day-to-day functions, because the army is totally trained for something else. And even in terms of our own dispensation, we rarely deploy the army to manage this kind of demonstration. So it's something that I think has been over-exaggerated, and I've heard the terms like regime change and so on. I think it's an over-exaggeration of understanding what the situation is. A regime change is a totally different concept. Right then, regime change actually, it means removing, forceful removing of the government. It's a cohesive removal of government, and regime change can take place. It's a common concept in international relations, because regime change, it means a foreign government wants to impose its own will on another government. But it can also happen in what we call a symmetric conflict, where people with common identity but have different understanding of the conflict can start to contest. But that only happens when the state has failed. Our state hasn't failed to anticipate regime change within the country.
Yeah, so you, from a risk perspective, you would be looking for the police to ramp themselves up in terms of their capabilities, their visibility, and the way they work. And as you said earlier, if there's another protest action that's going to be planned by anybody in the near future, they should plan how they're going to manage it.
The police actually should have the capacity to manage this kind of civil disobedience. It's unfortunate if the police keep on relying on the army. It sends a very wrong message internationally that we are totally unstable, and yet demonstrations are part of our democratic dispensation. That's how the police should develop the capacity to manage it and be able to communicate with all those who are involved in the demonstrations.
Now, if your government and they're approaching you and say, hey, Dr. Makhubela, we just need some risk advice here, having seen what has happened today, as you said, it's too early, the protest is still underway, and as the EFF itself has said, the day ends at midnight tonight, so we could be seeing more action happening right up to the middle of the night. What would you tell the government to be doing?
But given what we've seen so far, Braden, I really don't think the situation will be worse than what we are seeing. Because I was listening to the leader of the EFF speaking to his members at the Church Square, and he was preaching peaceful demonstration. I think the message is quite clear. As long as the leaders are sending the right messages to their supporters, we'll continue to see peaceful demonstrations.
Yeah, I mean, if you think about what happened in 2021, before the July riots, we saw a lot of noise and instigation on social media. We saw some posts last week related to this shutdown that were bordering on inflaming, instigating things. So it's important that the leaders of EFF, like Julius Malema, are preaching peace.
Absolutely, they send the correct message. I mean, I've seen a disturbing video of this Nhlanhla carrying an assault rifle that is circulating on the social media. If that is correct, I ask myself why he's not arrested up to now. That's what we don't want. But from the behavior of the EFF, I haven't seen anyone. I've been following social media, carrying rifle or carrying a dangerous weapon. People are preaching peace, and I think that's what we need to do moving forward. Yeah, and that's what is going to strengthen the credibility of our own democracy.
Yeah, you mentioned Nhlanhla, and he alleges or claims this morning that there was a bomb, 2 bombs thrown at his home in Soweto. Now the police are investigating. The Minister of Police, Bekele, was there.
I saw that, but the biggest problem, 2 bomb explosions, and he's carrying an AK assault rifle. Publicly displaying it and speaking, what are we saying? He should be in jail by now, because that's not the message that we want. That's what is going to create a problem amongst communities if people start to arm themselves to really try to do whatever they want to do.
If this, what we're witnessing today, I mean, there's been no mayhem so far. It's gone on very peacefully and quiet. If this becomes the norm of protest actions or civil disobedience, as you say, in the country, you said it will strengthen democracy going forward. What could other positive implications be of that?
It will be that our democratic institution will be strengthened, that people are able to freely voice their displeasure or even to freely state their pleasure. When Banyana has won, we go and do a ticket parade to express how happy we are. Similarly, when we are unhappy, we must be allowed to go and demonstrate. And I think that will send a clear message around the world that we are a mature democracy. We are able to accept dissenting views and manage our differences.
But currently the world, you said, is watching the deployment of the army thinking, was this necessary?
The deployment of the army, in my own view, Braden, was totally unnecessary. It sends a message that we are a country at war, and yet we are not a country at war.
Now from a risk perspective, safety and security in this country becomes a big issue, especially we are told when people want to think about investing in South Africa, they worry about the levels of crime, among other concerns besides load shedding. And we've had no load shedding for 2 days now, yesterday and today, but tomorrow afternoon it will be back to stage 2. But the police are showing that they are capable. Musi Maimane, Build One South Africa leader, talking to us on eNCA earlier, and I just played a clip of him a short while ago before I spoke to you. He's saying, but that's what the police must do every day. For ordinary South Africans to feel safe and stuff, they can marshal resources, they're showing that they're capable. So where are they going forward? So will that be another factor here, or lesson from today?
Moving out of this, or taking the experience of today, there will be the expectation that the police can behave very well and prevent mayhem in the society. So I think the expectations are going to run very high from all of us. We're going to expect more to say, why can't you do what you did on the 20th of March? And I think they've set a precedent for themselves that they have to maintain. And I think we can only expect more from them to do much better in terms of providing protection to the general public.
Yeah, so it's going to be very interesting to see what comes out of this. So if you're looking back while we're still here, I mean, the EFF already on their social media platforms claiming victory and saying, you know, many people didn't go to work and maybe they were heeding their call, but other people may say, no, I just wanted peace in my life today. I didn't want you to risk it. From a country image perspective, from a risk image of the country, how are we looking in your view?
Well, the bad thing about this kind of civil disobedience, it disrupts the economic activity of the country. The damage that is done to the country, it's immense. If I was to advise any politicians, this is not the time to really embark on civil disobedience that is disruptive to the economy, that affects the job creation. I mean, we're sitting at 35% of the public who don't have jobs. I think we should be sensitive to that and be able to manage our differences in a totally different way. I'm not saying they don't have the right to demonstrate, but you've got to weigh that against what the country is going through and measure that in terms of what the country is going through.
Are you saying we should be focusing, all of us, on solutions?
I think we should focus on solution. And there's a dialogue already that is built. We are not a country that we are unable to talk to each other. What we need to tweak moving to elections is the language that we're using. We are not enemies. We can't categorize each other, different political role players, as enemies. And even the concept of counter-revolutionary. You can't say people who don't agree with you are counter-revolutionary. That is actually a stigmatization of some people. We must see each other as opponents, having the same desire to move the country forward, but having different opinion. And I think that's how the world is going to respect, and that's how the world is functioning. It's functioning on the basis of different of opinion, but they're able to manage their opinions and move forward.
Dr. Kingsley Makhubela, Director at RiskRecon, thank you very much for your time.
Thank you very much,
and your insights around what's been happening in our country today, and also taking that future look. We should all be working together for solutions instead of just embarking on civil disobedience. We are not enemies, he says.